You know that large segment of people that for the longest time have been arguing with everybody else on the planet that this time it's different. This time we are going to see things explode. Price will go even further and higher and faster for longer this period of time. You're going to pay even more for a house in 2027. You need to marry the house and date the rate. And if you don't buy right now, you're going to really regret it. There's a massive shift, at least in where I'm at in Florida. And I know at the risk of sounding like my experience is also being experienced in other states, I will tell you that there is a very uniform sentiment being felt all around Florida that something this way comes, that there is a massive shift as we see unfolding in 2024 that has detrimental effects on the housing market and is now known, especially if you're on the market, or if you've been on the market for 4 or 5 months, you're already with me. You're already saying, Jared, I get it. I see all this competition. I thought my house would sell in 3 weeks. I thought there might be multiple offers or at least a offer. And now the competitive environment has completely shifted. And I hate to say, I've got data today that's going to show you that there is actually a little bit more headwinds coming into spring. And the unfortunate thing, particularly if you're a home seller in this market, or if you're just a person that likes to pull up Zillow every day and imagine that you're a paper millionaire because you have all this equity built in your house, and as long as it's there, you're rich. And ultimately, there might be signs that there are some major shifts, perhaps, may we say, even a crash starting to form in particular markets around Florida. And I take no joy in the fact that as we see inventory starting to really get seriously high in Florida, with a lot of people at the same time saying, I'm making plans, I'm bringing my house to the market. We've got to make sure you understand exactly what's going on so that you can make informed decisions. But I got to tell you folks, if you've been paying attention to the news this week, the interest rates are going to be higher for longer. And all the people over the past 5 months that have been cheerfully telling you, do this or do that because you'll be able to refinance by summer and all, that is baloney. Interest rates are still playing around 7%. And ultimately, they are going to be there for much longer, according to many of the large outlets watching what the Federal Reserve is doing, simply because things are still expensive, shelter cost included. Today's top story is the fact that rents are starting to crater in Florida. And if you're a homeowner in this market, AKA paper millionaire, or if you're looking to sell or you're looking to buy, you got to understand how these massive shifts, like 5-year-long shifts in rents going down, is going to affect housing prices around you. But additional to that, we're going to look at some key market metrics to show you exactly what Florida is doing right now, some hot spots where inventory has gone way too high, price cuts are spiraling out of control in a few different markets that I'm going to show you today. Stay tuned, and if you appreciate the hours of research and mental energy that I go to bring this information to you, please drop down below and do 2 things. Smash the like button, leave a comment, say hello, so that more people see this video, and I have a shot at making sure my 4 boys can continue to eat $8 a pound can continue to eat ground beef at $8 a pound and $5 a dozen eggs, because and $5 per dozen for eggs, boys that eat you out of house and home, folks. Help me out. Let's get into the data.
Change is coming, my fellow Americans. You will own nothing and you will be happy.
All right, herein lies the major story, folks. Let's start here. This is Florida. Look at this. You have inventory that was down to 35,000 active units. This is the Federal Reserve's data for active supply in the state of Florida. You can see it has gone off the charts and no signs of slowing. And as a guy, as an agent, as a person standing in the middle of the storm, telling you how many calls I'm getting right now of people wanting to sell their homes, I'm like the dude in the hurricane who's out there like, back to you, Mike, and he's getting doused with wind. I am telling you, going into March and going into April, I expect you will still see this climb. That means this: if you're putting your house in the market, you're adding on top of numbers that are steadily going up. Why is this a problem? Well, let's go to a lead story by Calculated Risk down the middle. National Association of Realtors says existing home sales increased to 4.3 million seasonal adjusted annual rate in February. Why is that a problem, Jared? Well, you got to understand, we are now in 2024. We're going towards and charting to a 4.38 million sold volume. For the resale market, that would represent one of the lowest numbers that we've seen other than last year in like 20 years, okay? So you have to understand that 2023 was an abysmal year for buyers wanting to buy anything, regardless of low inventory. Now let's take a look at the mortgage application data, because you know what? if we're going to see exactly how bad this thing's going to get for Florida, we got to see, are there buyers coming into the pipe? Are they starting the process? Are they running in fear? Is it going to be worse than last year? Is it going to be better? Take a look at this. This is the Mortgage Bankers Association. Mortgage applications decrease in the latest MBA weekly survey. They go around and they're surveying a bunch of leading companies to find out how many buyers are going into lenders and saying, I want to apply. I want to get into the process of looking to buy a home. And it's not good, folks. Applications are dropping going into spring. They're actually lower than prior week. Look at this. Look at this. Unadjusted purchase index decreased 1% compared with the previous week and is 14% lower than the same week 1 year ago. Okay, let me recap in case this is processing slowly. Last year was one of the lowest years of sales that we have seen in 24 years. So we go back in the 1990s to see how pitifully low amount of volume was done, which absolutely was detrimental, which is why I just showed you a chart here on the housing market that shows Florida's going straight vertical. Because why? Buyers are seeing these interest rates. They don't like the 30-year fix fluctuating around 7% if you're a person with excellent credit. They're now faced with what? What are we going to do? You know, we're in this marketplace where we either can rent or we can purchase. And we're in a high relocation state. I mean, we're dependent on it. Over the past couple of years, I think 21 and 22, just 2 years back, we had something like 400,000 to 500,000 people migrate into the state. Well, I've been telling you, if you're watching this channel, that we've been watching a descending amount, a dropping level to some degree of actual people planning relocations. But at the same time, folks, for whatever reason, there's a whole lot of people local that have said, I'm done sitting on the fence. I've had enough. There's now a higher increased amount of people that are holding on to low interest rates that are saying in the year 2024, for whatever reason, I am out. Some people are selling at a loss. Some people are like, I bought a year ago. I'm going to lose 50,000. I'm going to lose 75. I'm going to lose 100, 150,000. Those people are in the market too saying, enough's enough. For whatever reason, I'm going to be out. I also think that's also driving a general consensus that is creating a narrative where people are actually assuming that we might see a crash. We might see a serious turn that hasn't been seen in 10 or 15 years. These are the things that people in the marketplace are telling me is their sense from the side of the table they're sitting on, particularly those that are like, hey, I'm on the market already. I want to have a conversation with you about why it's not selling, or maybe you could take over and get it sold for me. Now, all of these have a relationship to the fact that inventory around them is more and more signs down the street from my house. And additionally, it's undeniable that in the face of this environment, buyers themselves are just standing back, particularly the ones that you need, particularly the ones that we've been counting on that have either been moving here or they were on the sidelines renting, ready for that day to get out of apartment life and then move into inventory. But you're going to see, I'm going to show you a shocking report about what's happening in the rental market that I think is going to have devastating effects, particularly increasing to this inventory growth phenomenon where people, more and more homeowners, many of which are done holding their house. Like they've made a decision. They've crossed the Rubicon. They're like, I'm out at any price. And you know, I bought, in 2021, I paid the highest offer over 50 other offers and I put 300 grand down cash. I'm going to give some of that back and I'm going to sell no matter what because of one reason or another. Their property taxes shot up 150% or whatever. There's all these realities that are creating situations where more people have made the determination at the same time to get out of Dodge. Now look at what's happening in the real estate market as a result. This is year over year inventory levels against last month. You can see the marketplaces that are in bright red are an absolute sign that inventory surplus is a problem, okay? So you have marketplace like Palm Bay, 32% over historic averages. Here we are, you're taking your given month versus a long-running 5-6 year average. Which ones are now in a sketchy territory amongst history at a time now in history when you don't have as many buyers to deal with, which is where the problem lies. Look at this. Ocala, 50% over on a surplus of inventory. Deltona, Ormond Beach, Volusia, by the way, this will also include Deltona DeLand, 29.8% over historic norms. Palm Bay, Melbourne, 33% over. Orlando, Kissimmee, Sanford, which is a lighter orange, right? Means it's not as bad, but it's 23.4% over historic average. Lakeland, Winter Haven, Lake Wales, all of you down there in Polk, 48.6% over, almost 50%. Look at the Southwest though, folks. Northport, Sarasota, Bradenton, 41%. Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte, 87%. Cape Coral, Fort Myers is up 44%. And down here in the Southeast, all of you hoping Miami, Fort Lauderdale hits a trip up and starts to get slammed. Not there yet, folks. Actually down 2% over historic average. Jared, is this a big deal? Should I be concerned? Here's what you need to know. The reality is that even if you were even, okay, you didn't have a surplus, you weren't over historic averages for your given marketplace. If you were just kind of normalized, right, near where Miami is, you've just got less active buyers. Buyer demand is a little off. But again, folks, we're in Florida. You got to put an asterisk by that. And one thing I would encourage you to do, whether you're buying, you're selling, you're looking, and you're curious, am I still a paper millionaire? Do I still have all this equity? Your home is starting to bury you, or you're feeling the tax pressures, or whatever it is. The basic thing that you need to do is check supply and demand and look at the actual details. People call me from time to time and they'll say, hey, Jared, is my agent doing a good job? I've been on the market for 6 months. What's going on? And I'll start to ask them about the market dynamics. Hey, how much supply is competing with you? How do things look today versus history? What kind of competition do you have? And 98% of the time, people say, I don't know. And I say, did your agent ever provide this information? You've been with them for 6 months. No, they did not. I've had no visibility, whether it's favored in my side or the buyer's got the upper hand or what I should expect in the process. Folks, there's plenty of knowns in the data that can actually counsel you on exactly how things are. And I got to tell you, the asterisk is it's Florida. Coming back to that notion, Florida is massively popular for a variety of reasons that have nothing to do with palm trees and sandy beaches. So the reality is there is an ongoing future interest in our market that we just have. It's almost like having gold buried under everybody's lot that nobody in the other states have and that a lot of other people want to move here in order to sit on top of. And that's just reality. So on one hand, I'm not trying to overcook the goose and try to convince everybody to be very, very afraid. And on the other hand, I'm not trying to be the overly positive, pushy realtor that's like, marry the house and date the rate and you're going to be refinancing soon and it's going to be just fine. And maybe, just maybe, renting is for you. I don't know your situation, but check this story out.
At NestShare, we list your home for just 3%, saving you $25,000 on the sale of your property. Don't pay outdated commission levels of 5 and 6%. You can trust NestShare to sell your home right and pass the savings on to you. Visit nestshare.com before you list your next home, and don't let anybody you know sell before talking to us.
All right, get ready, everybody, because this is nuts. First time since pre-pandemic, this is 24 hours breaking news from Channel 2 out of Central Florida. Central Florida rent price decreases for the first time since 2022. Now look at this epic craziness that has just gone on. And by the way, you're looking at apartment numbers. You're also looking at the starting price. This is like the studio 1-bedroom, the specialty market. It's just amazing. Like I get out of my parents' house and this is what I get to lease for myself here in the Orlando area. But pre-pandemic, we were around $1,200 a month at the start of the market. Now, if you're looking at 3 and 4 bedroom apartments, those bigger spots are going to be like $2,000 a month today. But back then they were like $1,400, $1,500 a month. Look at what's going on. The marketplace ballooned from $1,230. By the time we'd already begun our inflation fight, even in 2022, it just kept getting worse into last year. Well, now it dropped pretty good. And this is 2024. So we're about 2 months into the new year with data. And folks, this has interesting implications for a lot of reasons. You got to understand this graph right here. And this is historic rents in Orlando are typically over the cost of ownership. You know, the old slogan, why rent when you can own? That used to be a thing. Why? Because you would save money on your monthly payment if you went out and bought a place. And ultimately, I've had someone in my comments one time, is epic, that says the cost of what it is to rent a house is really what it should cost. And that should be it. But that's not true. In Florida, you will pay close to $3,000 a month to purchase an entry house. This is in my area. So this is like Central Florida, Orlando, Tampa. It's going to cost you around $3,000 a month to buy a starting 3-bedroom that you can rent for around $2,000 a month. Now, I'm making adjustments because this chart's a few months old, and I'm telling you this in real time, and I also know that they don't actually have true insurance numbers built into this graph. And if you know, Florida's got high insurance. So the marketplace, all you need to know, if you're an entry person, I'm an entry market, smaller family looking for a 3-bedroom house, it's 30% savings to lease. This is going to affect you if you own a house. Hear me on this. If you're going into the mid-range and luxury range homes, those people are saving 50% over what it costs to own a home versus rent. So they're going to opt into rent because at the end of the day, a person's like, why would I spend $7,000 a month for this $750,000, $800,000 house? I can rent it for $3,000 a month or $3,500, maybe $3,800 a month, something like that. Big savings. It's all shelter costs. At the same time, we are now posting stories that rents are starting to crater. This is bad news for the investor. You've not been seeing your property taxes go down. You've not been seeing your homeowners association dues go down. You've not been seeing your property insurance go down. You know those are all massively increased over the past 2 or 3 years. And now you are facing something that is going to be of epic challenge. And this is the problem for homeowners. You're going to come into this year where you are introducing in Florida a record number of apartment dwellers. So you're going to have apartments, and everybody knows it. If you drive anywhere in the major metros in Florida, you are seeing 3- and 4-story buildings going up everywhere to house 700, 800, 1,000 people. Apartments due to be released in 2024 around most of the metros in Florida are epic, record numbers. I've been telling you, it's been reporting you. I said, hey, listen, over this cycle from 2020 to 2023, you've had crazy amounts of multifamily apartments being constructed, permits being pulled off the charts, and all of that being backed by the fact that our federal government, particularly through the government-sponsored entities, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, have been giving crazy sweetheart financing to get people into the multifamily market and particularly invest in apartments by giving them very good interest rates to try and build something. But follow me on this. This is the crazy thing. The bubble that we saw in 2004 to 2008 really happened because you had residential permits, house permits being pulled in record numbers. All this supply was created, and then there was all these crazy loans and everything else that went on. Overnight inflation took place. Everybody wanted to grab something. Prices went through the roof, and then it all came down. On this side of the cards, 20 to 23, we have the multifamily blow up. If you look at most of these major markets, the permit pulling for these multifamilies was astronomically high. We've got a ton of those still to come. So now we're saying in news reports early in 2024 that, oh, by the way, we've got all these apartments coming. There's all this supply. There's available inventory. We're going to see some crazy things happening because this line is going to have to correct. You're going to have this market, which is unnaturally inverse, that is going to actually correct itself. But you got to notice, for that to take place, what's going to happen? You have the Federal Reserve, their only focus, the central bankers that are controlling and trying to reduce, they're only watching that blue line. They only measure rent rate in the CPI. When they're actually looking, keeping a pulse on what needs to come down price-wise, they ain't paying attention to this red line, how much it costs you to buy a house. They want to drive this one down. So as you see, if you were to continue the amount of appreciation over time through this range, like imagine we didn't print all this phony money and stimulus and go, where would the rent rate be? It'd be somewhere in here, right? Well, imagine that we're now, and again, this is a graph from last year. So this rent rate's already, according to the data, most likely starting to trend downward. If it's going to come back on track, and then you've got to get this home price, this red line that's 30 to 50% too high. You've got to get that down, inverse beneath the green line again, which is falling. There's only 2 methods for that, folks. Number one, it's either going to come down because you're going to drive down interest rates to 2%, so that we can have home prices escalate forever, but the payment to buy is going to get much, much better because you can go get a 30-year fix at 2% all over again. Okay, give me a break. If you think that's going to happen, that is a long way off in the future. The only other way to attract buyers, because that's what's going to happen, folks. You're already going to see Florida's inventory climbing. You're going to compete for those buyers, going to be heavily distracted and trying to keep their shelter costs as low as they possibly can. And if you're an investor, you got to understand you're going to have tenants with massive distraction problems who are going to look for the best possible shelter costs. There's a whole lot of industries that have been created that have actually come into the Florida market because there's been a lot of appetite for people just to rent out a single room. You got to understand, if you're in the market doing this stuff this year, you have to pay attention because you are going to have situations where you're paying extraordinary high money for the houses you're getting. You're actually going out and purchasing property. The borrowing costs of 2024 are astronomical. You cannot count on your room rates this year. You are going to, in all likelihood, see some increasing competition because all of those apartments that were $1,200, imagine we get close to that again. Imagine you start seeing these rents fall to where the leading studio or one bedroom starts to come down. You just got to be careful. Saying all that to say this, the number one most important thing you need to do is you need to understand that Florida is super popular. There's literally gold underneath every property all across the state. People want to live here. We have intrinsic value to others and everywhere else in the world, and that won't change. Now, even if we do have 30% fewer searches for relocation, there's still a host of people that want to live in the state of Florida. But every marketplace is different, and I'm going to show you right now where you need to be careful. If you live in any of these areas I'm about to show you, your marketplace is changing right now in real time. Hefty inventory changes. And on top of that, you factor in the shelter cost competition that I just rolled out to you. If you are selling in this environment, you are going to have to be mindful of your asking price. This is the first that I have not seen in a long time, folks. This is year-over-year inventory growth, okay? Earlier in the video, I showed you areas of Florida that were historically high versus historic average. This is how much new stuff is sitting versus recent history, 2023. And let's have a look. Even the Southeast, this is uncommon. We've been doing these updates for probably 2 years on this channel. I never have seen such high numbers even in the Southeast. And this is interesting because everybody in the Miami area and the Fort Lauderdale area, all of that, everybody said, you know what? It's different here. It's different. And it is. There's definitely less permitting going on. It's more landlocked to a degree. There's not a lot more new creative stuff they can do to provide a lot of affordable housing for people. But look at the inventory shift even on the East Coast. You've got Indian River, 46% up year over year. St. Lucie, 36.6. Martin County, 40.7% inventory climb. Palm Beach, which Palm Beach, by the way, in Broward County even, has been flagging Redfin. They hit a couple times in the top 5 in the entire nation for single month listing growth. I think that was around December and January. So these markets in the Southeast, folks, they're changing right now. And I know you're tired of hearing me say folks, but look at this in the South. Collier County, Naples, 73% up year over year. You have Fort Myers and Cape Coral. Inventory has doubled since last year. Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, up 150% year over year. Except for Manatee, you got Sarasota and DeSoto up nearly double on the year. Now up here in the St. Pete, Tampa area, you've got 20% up year over year. In Hillsborough County, you've got 64%. Volusia County's up 43%. Melbourne area, Brevard, 47% up. And Central Florida has been one of the hottest areas, kind of tailing Miami. We have 50% up in Seminole, 37% in Orange, 44% in Osceola County, 30% up in Polk year over year. Understand some of these were big numbers last year. So you're seeing 2 years back to back of really high inventory increase. So this is going to be an interesting moving season. Flagler's 34%, St. Augustine area and St. John's 43% up. Jacksonville's only showing 15.6%, which is good. They're showing some signs of leveling off, which they kind of needed against last year. The Villages looks like they might be seeing some absorption because I know they've been putting up some big numbers lately, but they're only up 17.2% on the year. The Ocala area in Marion County is up 33% year over year. One to watch right there. Stretching out here to the Panhandle, Pensacola Marketplace up 29% over last year. Santa Rosa 45%. Walton's up 40%. Next thing I want to show you is price cut percentage. Now watch when I click this. Boom! Looks like the state just caught a fever of 107. And folks, that's high because all of these red areas are very, very high percentage of price cuts. You're looking at the number or percentage of listings active that have to cut the price in order to sell. You can see Miami-Dade still holding a little bit temperatureless. at 17%, but you go north, you're 25%, 1 out of 4 in Brevard, price cutting, 1 out of 3 in Palm Beach, price cutting, 1 out of 3 in Martin County, price cutting, 1 out of 3 in Port St. Lucie, 1 out of 3 in Naples, nearly 40% in Fort Myers, Cape Coral, cutting price in order to sell, 37% in Charlotte County, 37.5% in Sarasota. You can see almost everything up the west is 1 out of 3. Orlando major markets are still around 1 out of 5, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3. In the Northwest, Lake County is at 30%. North of Orlando, Seminole County, 29%. Volusia County is almost 28%. Melbourne, Satellite Beach, Merritt Island, just over 31%. And even though Jacksonville's year over year not looking too bad, you still have 31% of listings there going on the market, reducing the price, not getting what they want, bringing it down. And the Panhandle, Escambia is at 25.2% in the Pensacola area, 24.7% in Santa Rosa. Walton only 17%, showing signs of holding prices much like Miami. I will say for all this data, a lot of us know how this really goes. A lot of these people are putting their house on the market, trying for a number that they really thought could happen. It's not happening. So as you can see from all this price cut data, two things are at play. Buyers are standing back, staring down the sellers, and sellers, a lot of them are learning as they go. They have to bring those prices down. I will tell you, against all of this crazy data that I did show you, it doesn't seem like days on market time is too crazy out of hand. And as you all know, behind all of this, there's been some changes coming down the pipe for home sellers. If you're considering selling your home and you see the price cut data, you know that the cost to sell matters more than ever before. If you're in the Central Florida area selling your home, or you know somebody who is, don't let them sell and pay too much in a changing market environment. Visit nestshare.com, full service, top broker, top agency, me by your side in the Orlando marketplace, helping you get your home sold and get it sold right. With NestShare, you list for 3%, so that if you have to price competitively, you have a little more money left over. As a bonus, many of you have been asking about income property in Florida. I've got an Airbnb, beautiful property priced about 10 to 15% below peak comps, fully furnished, amazing house, 6 bedrooms, 6 bath, produces around 40 to 50,000 in revenue on a typical year. I dropped that link below, along with another amazing house in a beautiful community in Winter Garden. Check them both out, and thanks for watching.